to range across the whole entire Southeast. They used to go all the way over to Louisiana, and they would breed with cats in the Midwest, cats in Texas. And they can't do that when they're stuck down here.
It's about 5% of its original range.
So now we are entering this phase of Florida panther management, where the population has gone from 30 individuals 30 years ago to an official estimate of 120 to 230 in the wilds of South Florida.
They've kind of outgrown the space that they have available.
The only population of Florida panthers are down here, and that is not sustainable, and that is not recovery.
Because 200 individuals isolated on the southern tip of a peninsula is still not a sustainable number.
And now we want that population to expand into North Florida.
And potentially somewhere else in the southeastern United States. That's what's going to take for this population to be recovered from endangered. So the Florida panther is the last puma east of the Mississippi River.
Back in the day, people think that there could have been about 1,200 panthers in the state of Florida.
Then as human development moved in, and we, as humans, started to do the things we do, we're very industrious, we started to fragment and destroy the habitat and push the panther farther and farther south until it was only found, and currently is only now found, mostly south of Lake Okeechobee.
There were as few as 20 or 30 individuals estimated.
The estimate now is 120 to 230 adults and subadults.
They survived in one of the most harsh and difficult to access landscapes that we have in the southern Everglades.
For them to expand, they need to move out of there.
Because they are currently isolated to the southern tip of Florida.
What was it, November 2016? We verified the first female north of the river, and that was on Babcock Ranch.
We've seen 2 broods of kittens, so we know that they're breeding north of the Caloosahatchee.
So a lot of the current state of Florida panther management is helping people to understand that panthers are coming to Central and North Florida.
Much more education and outreach is needed.
And if we were to be able to put in place corridors that are protected through public lands, conservation easements, public goodwill, the panther could migrate naturally. It's trying to do that.
If there's going to be a future for the Florida panther, we need to save a wildlife corridor that's going to keep the Everglades connected to the rest of our state and to the rest of the country.
I think the panthers are ready. They're showing us that. The landscape is ready, so we need to get moving.
My name's Carlton Moore Jr. I'm a photographer focusing on conservation. National Geographic Society supports my work, and I'm on my 4th grant from National Geographic for a project called Path of the Panther. My relationship there began back in 2011 when we did the first Florida Wildlife Corridor expedition.
They found that there's still a viable corridor, that it is still possible for an animal to move from the Florida Everglades all the way up into Georgia or into Alabama, but there's some places where it's really difficult. There's a lot of road crossings, over roads. Some of those are functional underpasses. A lot of the times animals are just having to kind of take the chance, and fatalities from road collisions is really the biggest threat to the Florida panther right now.
So I'm Jennifer Korn. I frequently Jen. I'm from Texas, the best state. But I've lived in Florida, I moved here in 2013 to take a job with FWC, Florida Fish and Wildlife, to be their first panther biologist north of the Caloosahatchee River. But I have this really great project with FDOT, District 1, where we're looking at bridges, crossings. Can we figure out what's the optimal bridge design? But then also, can we find things like this place we're at right now, where there's already a bridge there, but it's in a really key area, it's a corridor for wildlife. They just need a little something to walk on or something to make it a little safer. Can we go in and add ledges and add a little fencing, which is so much cheaper. Their population has gotten better since, they were down to 30 individuals, but it can't all be down there. I mean, they're gonna run out of space. They're just gonna start inbreeding again. They get up there and start breeding and having kittens, it lessens that, the genetics can spread out. And part of the things that help are things like this, conservation easement, this crossing, another easement on the north side river. We protected this corridor, so we didn't have to pick up a cat and move it. We just made the place available for them to be able to do it on their own.
I believe the number one threat to the Florida panther and all Florida wildlife is unchecked suburban development. So if we continue to sprawl as we have been, we're going to lose 5 million acres of the Florida Wildlife Corridor by the year 2070.
Protecting the corridor can happen in many ways. Part of it is public land acquisition and having parks and preserves that are accessible to the public for them to enjoy. But there's also ways to protect lands in the future without taking them out of private ownership.
We're not trying to buy it. We're not trying to take your land away. That's actually the last thing that we want to do, because we don't have the money or the resources to be able to go out and buy everybody's land and then manage it.
So conservation easements are a really powerful tool. What it does is it keeps lands in private ownership. The land managers continue to steward those lands and maintain them. They're paid, a certain percentage of the land value to not develop them in the future.
What gives me the most hope that we can actually save the Florida Wildlife Corridor is that there are landowners and multi-generational families representing millions of acres of wild Florida who want alternatives to development.
Rangers are excellent land stewards. They provide a mosaic of land on their properties. There's pasture, but there's native, forest. There's everything out there they can possibly manage. And they do such a good job at it. We want them to keep doing it.
And what we have to do is empower those landowners to choose an alternative to the sprawl that has been so typical for Florida's history up till now.
I'm Elizabeth Fleming, the senior Florida representative. I've worked with Defenders for about 14 years, and I lead our work on Florida Panther. Defenders of Wildlife and some other organizations are working with the largest landowners in eastern Collier County on something called a habitat conservation plan. Panthers need these lands, and so these ranchers really have to share their land with panthers. The larger ranches are also having depredation events on calves, and there's resentment. I'm not going to underestimate the challenges. If that's your particular herd and your livelihood, it can be expensive. And there's a lot of research underway around the United States and actually around the world to help ranchers and livestock owners avoid these conflicts with wild predators.
My name is Lisa Pretty. I'm a cattle rancher. 10 or 11 years ago, we noticed a big decline in our calf crop, and we really didn't know what to attribute it to. And it took us a while to verify that it was panthers that were eating what we consider to be a fairly large percentage of our calf crop. You do feel very helpless. The difficulty of it is trying to comply with all of the red tape and the bureaucratic quagmire that you get into whenever you try to file a claim. So it's very easy for the federal government to say, well, we have programs that are going to help you and reimburse your losses, but what they don't tell you is how hard it is. And I think panthers have a place in the ecosystem, but they're there along with a lot of other animals. And I think because of that overcapacity south of the river is why we've seen the conflicts that we have in predation to commercial operations like mine, and also in really suburban areas where you have hobby livestock and pets being preyed upon by panthers, and that's well documented. And it causes fear in those communities.
If you can't afford a pen and you truly need financial help to do this, we can pay up to half of the cost of a pen. So the family that's up here that we're going to go see, they had a goat killed, and they went looking for help and found out about the Defenders program.
Okay, this is the actual pen that was given to us. This is the new one that's gonna be. That's how it's gonna be, but we're trying to finish it up. All right, that's Zumba. He's the guy with the horn. How you doing, buddy? That's B. That's Maddie. Come on. She's shy, but so far it's done the job.
Good.
Keep him safe. Yeah. Come, Zumba. Zoom. Come here. What am I gonna do? Am I supposed to go out there and kill every single one of them because one of them did something? I don't see it that way. I know some people see it as, well, kill them all. No, I don't. Yeah. So I mean, I don't mind it at all. Look at that. So someone gonna tell me, oh, because he has one, kill him. No, he's still beautiful. Besides, they were here before us, right?
Yeah, I still feel hopeful that the panther can find its way to recovery, but we still have a long way to go.
Because Defenders has such a focus on coexistence and getting people on board with doing what's right for their animals, word of mouth is spreading.
Defenders came in and picked up that and said, hey, we need to still have outreach.
We're definitely working to get the message north.
So that's a huge part of it, just getting the people, educated.
But it's part of the whole spectrum of education, fostering coexistence so that people don't just automatically hate panthers.
The Florida panther evokes a lot of emotion. People are very excited at the thought of seeing a panther. Other people are frightened.
There might be people out there who say the Florida panther should live in the vast acreage of Big Cypress National Preserve and Everglades National Park. But we know that that land is not enough to sustain a healthy long-term population of wildlife. And so the most important thing to do is work with local communities, work with landowners, and develop a culture of coexistence between people and wildlife. I mean, there is an incredible alignment between ranchers, farmers, and environmentalists throughout lots of Florida.
We like our lifestyle, we like having the wildlife, we're not anti-panther, but there's a place in the entire ecosystem for them.
It's the same. We give and they give.
I think it does come down to what do Floridians want? What do they want as their legacy?
Just 15 years ago, it was report your Florida panther sightings, the elusive Florida panther. And now you have people who live in rural areas of Southwest Florida that might see 5 in a year because they live in a healthy habitat that's a wildlife corridor.
These parts of Florida are hidden in plain sight from most of the people in our state. The environmental community, the endangered species, these underappreciated lands and cultures don't have much of a chance in this current political system unless they have a voice. And that's where I think our work can really come in.
That can be through a vote, that can be through a donation, it can be through educating others, or even going out to volunteer. If you support conservation, it's going to help the panther, whether that's directly or indirectly. And that's kind of the biggest, easiest, most general statement that I can make, but I mean it, it's meaningful. Pay attention to public policy and vote for those kinds of things if you really care.
The number one thing that a person can do is pay attention and learn what's going on with the environment, learn what's going on with your natural communities, and use your own voices.
We might not have the same vested interests as individuals or on an individual issue, but if you can find that common ground, that's such a powerful tool. And for a lot of people, the common ground is not losing wild Florida, whether that's because they like their quiet life, they don't want to live next to a mall, they have a ranch that is their livelihood, or they care about the Florida panther. It's all going to accomplish the same thing, and everyone needs to be able to recognize that and work together.